Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 9th Council meeting of 2021. I particularly want to thank the community of Aramara and North Aramara for welcoming us here today in your beautiful hall, which I note is approaching its centenary. I'm sure we'll do some work on the roof before it turns 100 and some other much needed improvements to make sure it continues to serve the community as it has done for almost a century now. I want to open by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We invited Pastor Michelle Farmer from the Nazarene Church to lead us in opening prayer. She's not here. I'll ask Councillor Paul Truscott to do that then.
Sure. All right. Let's open prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord, and thank you for bringing us all here, and we pray for your wisdom and blessing on this meeting today, for your presence to be known and for good decisions to be made on behalf of our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. And I'll just, you need to press the microphone now so for it to go green for it to be live. So on item number 2, apologies and leave of absence. I'll move that Council note the apology from Councillor David Lewis, absent on leave of absence. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sanderson. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. I'll move that the order of business be amended to consider item 16.1.5, Council leave of absence for Councillor Lee, 16.1.7, Council leave of absence for Councillor Wellings, and in 16.1.8, Council leave of absence for Councillor O'Keefe. That's seconded Councillor Truscott. This is just move the business around. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. So we'll go to item 16.1.5, leave of absence for Councillor Lee. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Chapman, seconded Councillor Phil Truscott. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? It's carried unanimously. Sorry for the people watching. We just have a few people on leave through illness and school holidays, so we just have to sort out the apologies. 16.1.7, Councillor leave of absence for Councillor Wellings, page 715. This is moved Councillor Everard, seconded Councillor Hanson. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.8, Councillor leave of absence, Councillor O'Keefe, pages 718 to 720. This is moved Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Phil Truscott. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 3, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest? Yeah, we did all 3 of them. Yeah. Item 5.1, the ordinary meeting for August, pages 4 to 159.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, I was on leave, I can still vote on that?
Yes. Yeah. Is there a mover that they be confirmed? Councillor Chapman, seconded Councillor Paul Truscott. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 5.2 is the minutes for the special meeting of August, pages 160 to 161. Is there a mover that they be confirmed? Councillor Phil Truscott, seconded Councillor Everard. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.1, the open resolutions register for September, pages 162 to 184. Are there any questions for the CEO? Yeah, Councillor Paul Truscott. Oh, you're moving. Yep. Is there second, Councillor Everard? Any questions or discussion? I'll put the motion. Move Councillor Truscott, seconded Councillor Everard. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 7.1, community presentations. The CEO will provide a synopsis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had 3 residents participate in community participation this morning. The first was Mr. Graham Wode, who raised 4 matters. Firstly, he brought to Council's attention the need to use new digital display boards on the Kalula Coast Road for a range of disaster messages. Secondly, he requested the Council to introduce a fire danger rating system on digital display boards. He also raised concerns in relation to the changes in public participation and requested Council to reconsider the restrictions on the frequency of presentations. And finally, he brought to the Council's attention other matters of local interest. The second participant was Mr Ray Meyer, who requested the Council to approach Telstra to provide mobile telecommunication coverage at North Remuera Hall, particularly given it's recognised as a disaster evacuation centre for the area. The final person was Ms Gail Ward, who raised two matters. Firstly, she raised concerns in relation to the excessive speed by heavy vehicles on North Remuera Road and suggested changes to the location of the give-way signs and a warning sign to advise of the one-way bridge to improve visibility and road safety. And secondly, she requested that a number of wheelie bins be supplied at the hall by the Council. That's the report, Mr Mayor.
Very good. I'll move that the Council note the verbal report provided by the CEO on the matters raised during community presentations. Seconded, Councillor Everard. Any questions or discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 9.1, receipt of petitions. Are there any petitions? Councillor Everard.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a petition here from the Chief Petitioner, which is Tracy Diamond. There's 763 signatures, and this is the regarding the continuation of Yaya's coffee cart at the Urangan Pier Markets. There is a bit of a synopsis there. Do you want me to read it? Or?
Yeah, read it out.
Yeah, so this is from the owners of the business. Keep Yaya's coffee cart at Urangan Pier Markets. So to the Fraser Coast Regional Council, to keep our position at Urangan Pier Markets, we're requesting that Council conduct a review of the validity of the claims that may include a study of the increased population of the area and the subsequently the generated demand. We believe that as a coffee cart, we continue to contribute significantly to the vitality and the success of the markets, and that in turn the market contributes significantly to the financial viability of the surrounding business district. This is our main source of income and livelihood, and we are rate-paying local residents of the Fraser Coast. We work at the Urangan Pier Markets on Wednesdays and Saturday mornings. So as indicated, it says it's 763 signatures, and present this for a report for officers.
So you're moving that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration and a report to Council.
Thank you, Mr.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Paul Truscott. Any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Any further petitions? Item 9.2, petition response, request for upgrade at the end of Wolsey Street, Granville. This is page 185 to 186. Councillor Sanderson, you're moving this. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hanson. Councillor Sanderson's moving. Councillor Hanson seconding. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 9.3, objection to proposed mobile tower site at Craignish, 187 to 188. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Everard. Is there a seconder? Yeah. Seconded, Paul Truscott. Any questions or discussion? Yeah.
Mr Mayor, there's a section in there about the concerns of the residents may cause health implications for people living in the vicinity. I just think that we should address those and let people know out in public that these towers, the radiation that they give off, it's been proven that they're not a health issue. And then there's another one there about the wildlife, the corridor that it's interfering with, and I just think that once the report comes back, we should make that public to let people know out in the community. There was major concerns with the early towers and about the radiation that was given off, but the new towers is not as much. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.1, the Fraser Coast Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes for August, pages 189 to 195. Is there a mover that we receive and note the minutes? Councillor Phil Truscott, second Councillor Everard. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.2, Wide Bay Water and Waste Services Advisory Committee meeting minutes, pages 196 to 201. Councillor Everard's moving that. Second, and Councillor Paul Truscott. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.3, informal meetings, record of matters discussed, pages 202 to 222. Are there any questions on this one? Councillor Everard's moving that we receive and note the record of matters discussed. Seconded, Councillor Paul Truscott. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.1, Council Newsletter and Physical Engagement Hub. There's a recommendation there on page 223. Councillor Truscott, you're moving that recommendation? Councillor Phil Truscott seconding it. Did you wish to speak to this?
Yeah.
Good. Paul first.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to move this one. I'm glad that we're able to do it as well. I think it's a good thing in having this communication that we know will reach people. Like it has a guaranteed method of getting to people by going with the rates. I suppose just a personal disappointment is that it's the funding allocation is coming from the branding budget. It doesn't sit well with me that that's the case, but I don't know how else we can address that if unless there is another way or area where that can come from. But overall, I think it is necessary that we need to do this to get that communication out there. But hopefully, maybe in the budget review, we might be able to find another way to fund the branding guideline projects. I think that's pretty important also. Yeah. But happy to move it.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Phil Truscott.
Yes, I just want to make a comment actually, a positive to the negative, which is the second paragraph of the executive summary where it says paper does require extra allocation of extra staff, but ironically from my observation the people that get stuff in the mail are more tendent to read it than the people that get electronic, because we who get electronic often delete it. So from what I've seen, that's not a bad thing. It's actually quite good.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Chapman.
Mr Mayor, I think this will be a great opportunity to let the public out there know what's going on in our region. We're doing the Hinkler deal and we're building a new admin building and a new library and everything in Hervey Bay at the moment, and with projects that we've got on in Maryborough. This is good to let everyone know that's what's actually happening, and I'd also like to see road upgrades and other facilities that the council are doing, because not everyone gets the chance to drive around and look at every one of these projects, and it just shows you roughly where our money's being spent across the region with the community's rates. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. Look, I think it's a great project as well. I think that people in the bush particularly who haven't got access to the internet services are really going to appreciate this, and it's a great way of getting our message out.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.2, the report of the Audit and Risk Committee, pages 231 to 236. Is there a mover that we receive and note it? Councillor Everard. Seconded, Councillor Chapman. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.3, the councillor meeting attendance for October 2021, pages 237 to 238, listing 3 briefing sessions and an agenda forum and a concept forum. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Sanderson. Seconded, Councillor Phil Truscott. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.4, response to council relating to a resident concerns resolution. We've had the CEO has raised an issue about how this probably needs to be pulled from the agenda until a later meeting.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to withdraw this item from the agenda. There's been some further correspondence from the Minister for Police, which I think is relevant to that, and I also note that the councillor that raised this issue, Councillor Lee, is on leave at the moment, and I'd like to withdraw that agenda item and list it on the next council meeting.
Yeah. Does that need a resolution from us?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Yes, it does, Mr.
So the motion is that the item be, there's a line on the table, can we move that we withdrawn? Oh, okay, or that we accept the CEO has withdrawn it?
Yeah.
And that note that it'll come to the next council meeting? That's right. Okay, that's seconded Councillor Everard. I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.1, the dog off-leash park, Point Vernon and other areas, pages 243 to 246. Councillor Truscott's moving this one. Councillor Sanderson's seconding it. Did you wish to speak to this?
I don't think I need to say much other than just I appreciate it's a formality that we need to do to tie it off, and I think there's a good outcome of the parks that we are able to then, the existing parks that we're able to make improvements on out of not doing this other one.
Mm-hmm. And I'll speak to it as well. Off-leash parks are one of those things that everybody thinks are good, but they're not necessarily something people want across the road from them or very close to them. So we've gone through quite a bit of consultation. Constructing 2 dog off-leash parks was actually one of my few election promises. And the one at the Brendan Hansen Park's amazing. So is the one at the park we're about to name, that we've been known as Peterson Park at Craignish. We now separate them when we construct them, so there's an area for big dogs, an area for little dogs. Yeah, dog off-leash parks are a really important part of a vibrant community where people can get out and exercise their dogs and enjoy being outdoors. But we also need to be very, very careful that we don't put them in parks where people don't want them, and that we don't put them, in neighbourhoods where they're not going to get the best and highest use. Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
I'll also be voting on this, Mr Mayor, but I did cop a fair bit of flack from the Springs estate that when Black Stump Park weren't going to build a park up in Point Vernon, and that resource that we had there of all the fencing and everything, and there may have been a chance of putting it at the Springs estate, but then the residents of Point Vernon have come forward and said that Banksia Park, that's where they'd like to have it there, and there was virtually no complaints about having it there. And I feel it's good for Point Vernon to find a space for this, and I'd just like to put it on record that I'm not snobbing the Springs estate by not giving them a park, but their park will come in time to come. So I will be voting. I think this is a good outcome for Point Vernon, so that community up there have got somewhere that they can take their dogs. Thank you.
Is that an outcome though from this? What will happen in Point Vernon as a result of this? It'll be an unfenced park. Yeah. So the outcome of this is that Point Vernon people don't want it. Yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors. So we'll continue to, look for opportunities in Point Vernon and assess the Springs moving forward, as well as other locations as well. But the direct result of this is to reallocate the funding which came from the state government to embellish those 3 existing parks.
Yeah, rather than Point Vernon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move. Councillor Truscott, seconded Councillor Sanderson. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.2, review of public tree management policy, pages 247 to 288. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a slightly alternate motion to the current recommendation. Should I read that out?
Oh, yeah, read it out.
So the Council, 1, rescind the current tree management policy, document number 1977874, and then this is adding in a different point 2, which is to amend the draft public tree management policy, document number 4112516, to insert the following text as the 3rd bullet point in section 5.2, general public tree management, which then reads, where a tree is confirmed to have been inappropriately planted or located and or where the tree's long-term retention will cause unavoidable conflicts, the tree should be considered for removal as per provisions of the policy. And then point 3 is adopt the public tree management policy document number 4112516 as amended. I'll speak on that one, Scissor.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Everard, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this is about, I'm all for the trees, obviously, and have been a great advocate for it over the years about planting trees, but my concern primarily in adding this focus was just about, we've had some situations where some trees are in not a great location necessarily and or difficult for public or council to maintain, but in some of those cases where the tree is considered healthy, it's therefore not considered viable for removal. So based on the health of the tree rather than the overall situation, looking at the big picture. So it's not about wanting to just being able to remove trees, because it still has to meet all the provisions of the policy, but it's just putting in a bit of that clarification to basically look at the big picture of what else may need to be considered when a tree is being assessed, rather than just the health of the tree.
So, for example, may have been inappropriately planted. That's like if it's planted too close to a road, or planted too close to a fence, or?
For example, yeah, sometimes too close to a fence, or inappropriately, I suppose, in terms of it might have been a suitable spot years gone by, but now something has changed, and in order to look at it, like some of the cases that I know we've dealt with were if it's on someone's footpath, but it might be too big for the resident to be able to maintain. So in order for them to be able to address it, for like we've had some cases where there was elderly people that were unable to maintain the status of the tree out the front themselves. So it's not just to want to cut it down, but it's to ensure that it's the right tree in the right location, basically, as well. Not just being able to come in and cut trees down. This isn't for that at all. It's just to allow to look at the whole picture and what's around it, rather than just the health of the tree. So yeah, looking at, for example, there was the one at Tuggham in the car park there at the boat ramp, and there was a tree in the middle of the car park, in the middle of the bitumen, and it was very difficult for cars with boats and that to manoeuvre around this tree. And when the tree was considered, it was only considered in the health of the tree, not really for everything else that's happening around it. So it's about the appropriate placement of the right tree in the right location. So yes, while the health of a tree should be considered, and while I want to see as many trees as possible to be retained, it's about making sure it's the right tree in the right location. Okay. I hope I've said that right.
Ask a little bit maybe about, because I mean that would potentially open up for every single request for a tree to be removed. That will, because is it like, are you imagining that this would mean hundreds more trees being removed, or?
No. Oh heavens, no! I certainly hope not. And it's about that the whole whatever the project is that's being considered, that it's not just the tree's in good health, it has to be left. It's, well, what's happening around it. It's just to give us that extra provision of going, well, yeah, what needs to happen here? Is it going to be about safety? Because if we put this path right next to a giant tree that's going to drop limbs on people, I don't know what the case may be, but it's just about having it there. I don't envisage this to suddenly open a doorway to, oh, let's just cut down a bunch of trees, because I would be fully against that if that was the case. I believe this is just about looking at the bigger picture when assessing a tree, not just one aspect of the tree.
Were you going to add something?
No, Mr. I was just going to say I don't expect it to create an increased workload. I think when we get requests to remove trees, the primary consideration that we've been given to request is the health of the tree. And I think what this policy, this amendment that's been put forward by Councillor Truscott clarifies to the staff that are responsible for administering the policy that whilst the health of the tree is important, the appropriateness of the species and the location of the planting is also equally as important.
Okay. Any further speakers? Councillor Chapman.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I agree with this. I've had a situation where I've just been out to Barham Heads to the caravan park, and there's a couple of trees out there, and people in the caravan park that have been travelling around are saying that one of the major concerns is the danger of the trees. Even the manager out there said to me that one of the concerns was the danger of a couple of trees there, and even the neighbours actually had me out to have a look at his property to show me the danger of the trees, and told me that one of the limbs has actually fallen out of a tree. And then we just we had the council go out and look at it with the arborist, and they said, oh no, we're not going to touch that tree because it's quite healthy. And we've already had a limb fall out of it and fall onto someone's caravan, and it's just time that we'll get another death, because we have had a death from gum trees in caravan parks. And I feel that we just don't look at the health of the tree, we look at why we're actually looking at the tree, and that is the danger towards human life.
Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. Moved Councillor Truscott, seconded Councillor Everard. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.3, Mant Street illegal vegetation damage, 12-month progress report, pages 289 to 292. Are there any? Councillor Everard's moving that. Councillor Chapman seconding. Any questions or speakers? No, I'll put the motion. Move Councillor Everard, seconded Councillor Chapman. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.4, final report, Whale Heritage and Marine Experience Centre Planning Study, pages 293 to 410. With a recommendation on page 293, is there a mover for that? Councillor Chapman. The seconder. I'm happy to second it. Were there any speakers or questions? Councillor Truscott.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This one's been a tricky one for me, because I can see the benefits of something like this and the importance of it, but I just feel, I don't know if now is the right time for it. And I don't know if that's just me that feels that way, but I just feel it's probably something. We've got so many priority projects at the moment that I feel this could take away from others, and I know we're always trying to cut down the focus to try and just get things doing that we need to get doing. And so for me, I'm going to vote against this one today on that basis. That I just feel, I do think it's something that we'll need, but perhaps in time, not right now.
I'll speak in favour of it. This can be what we use to start the conversation with the state government and getting the Urangan Marina going again. We need the state government to take the Urangan Marina seriously, and the need to reform the land tenure, the need to look for expansion opportunities. This is a partnership with the University of Sunshine Coast, who want to continue to expand their marine biology program here for undergraduate students as well as postgraduate research. This is about working with the whale watching fleet, which is one of the most successful and iconic components of Harvey Bay and the Fraser Coast image and economy. This is about ensuring that the whale watching fleet and industry continues to remain the leading whale watching destination, now that other places have whale watching, like the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast. The first region that has this will be the one that has it. We need to make sure that we continue to be recognised as the whale watching capital of Australia. So for me, it meets so many goals of us right now in terms of the marina, helping the University of Sunshine Coast to keep young people here, helping the University of Sunshine Coast to achieve their goals in what is a very, very difficult environment for universities in Australia right now, and of course helping the whale watching industry, which has been the linchpin of our tourism industry in Harvey Bay now for several decades. So I think it should be something that we advocate to the state government for, on behalf of the university and on behalf of the marina and on behalf of the whale watching industry. Councillor Truscott.
I know we're supposed to go for and against, and I was going to vote against this for similar reasons, but I have done some research since then and found out that this, could be part of a master plan. We need to get the master plan done, and therefore this will either be considered in or out of that master plan, which could take years, which means it's not going to be happening right away, so I will change my view on it.
Councillor Chapman. Thank you. Yeah. Is there any further speakers against? Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to put some confidence back into Councillor Truscott's when he first spoke about it. These things are a project that, and they actually go onto a plan. It takes a long time to sort of get the funding, get the plan together. How's that? Hey, yeah, you all heard me. I'd just like to say that, Councillor Truscott, I think because these projects, they're a long-term plan, but what they do is, with our development industry that we've got going on in the region at the moment, and we've just passed a 17-storey building in Urangan, just somewhere just pretty close to the marina, and what this is to talk, and as the Mayor actually said, it's to engage the state government to look at funding for a problem that we've had for a fair few years, of the size of the Urangan harbour. And what this will do is, if we get this on a plan and look for funding allocations from the government to build a project like this, it gets our university involved, it gets our whale watching involved, and I really feel it's going to be a great asset for our region. And I think it will be, if we can get this across the line, the catalyst to start the move forward for our region. So it's only one project that's happening, but I think it'll be quite beneficial. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried 6-1. Item 11.3.5, the Regional Arts Development Fund Programme, pages 411 to 434. Yeah. So is there a mover? Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm happy to move, but with an amendment.
Yes.
Yep. Councillor Lewis has expressed interest to being involved with this committee as well. He's a very arty type person, but and not saying that Councillor Truscott and myself aren't, because we are, but I'd like to move an amendment that we add Councillor Lewis as a proxy.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, so on page 430. Oh no, 430 is the terms of reference. Membership, rate, members. It just says a single councillor. A councillor representing the FCRC, who shall be designated as the chairperson. And then one further. Oh no. So hang on. Up to 8 members.
That's including.
And one person's the chair, which is Phil. And so have we included Councillor Hanson as one of the other 7 community members? Are we saying Councillor Hanson's a community member?
Mr Chairman?
So I'll just, you got it, Chair, there? Are you looking at it? Page 430. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm reading it now, Mr Mayor, and you're talking in relation to 4.1A.
Yeah.
Dot point 2, which reads up to 7 community members, including 1 representative drawn from the Fraser Coast Regional Council Indigenous Advisory Committee. So it does anticipate that a councillor, who will be designated as the chairperson. My reading of this is that it doesn't allow for another councillor unless that councillor is appointed as a community member. So I don't know if that's the intention of the terms of reference.
So Andre, Kim, Matthew, David, Katie. So we've already got 7 community members with Andre, Kim, Matthew, David, Dr. Katie. So I'm going to Andre, Kim, Matthew, David, Katie, and Robert. So we are saying that James is a community member then, if we can.
Or you could simply pass a resolution amendment to change the terms of reference to allow an additional.
We might as well make it 9 members then.
And we have traditionally had 2 councillors on there.
It has traditionally had 2.
Through the Mayor, I think he was saying that he would be a proxy if James or one of us didn't turn up, that he would replace them on that day. So what do you call that, as a proxy, or what do you call that? Proxy. Okay.
Mr Chairman, just I think at the statutory meeting that we had at the beginning of the term, I'm sure that we appointed 2 councillors to the committee.
Yeah, we probably did. I'm just saying it's not really consistent.
Mr Mayor, I can confirm that notwithstanding the terms of reference, we traditionally had 2 councillors on this committee.
Yeah.
Does that include Chairman?
I just
Chairperson.
don't like us appointing a proxy when, so on page 432, 7C, members will commit to attending all meetings of the committee for which reasonable notice has been given. So I just don't think that foresees us having proxies when people that are being appointed are saying they're going to be at every single meeting. Yeah.
Mr Mayor, at the moment we do have a number of councillors on leave. If they were a member of that committee, that they wouldn't be able to attend that meeting, and a proxy would be useful.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if it actually forbids proxies.
411.
No, it doesn't.
Item 2 on page 411 of officer's recommendation. It said appointed councillor Truscott. This is for the last period, 1st October 2021 to 30th September 2022. So Johnny is still on the committee at the moment.
I was just talking to Ken.
Okay, so what's the resolution before us again? Sorry, Councillor Henson?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. But just to add an extra point to the recommendation that we appoint Councillor Lewis as a proxy in the event that either Councillor Truscott or myself are unable to attend.
Well, it might as well be any of the committee members. Like or he could be if one of the community members can't attend, he could be their proxy.
No, that's true.
Typically, if the person may not want that person to be a proxy for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Terms of reference? I'm happy with that.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that it meets the terms of reference. And are you?
No, Mr Mayor, I don't think that the resolution complies with the terms of reference, and I think you'd need to move an additional resolution that the terms of reference be amended to provide for the membership of 2 councillors, including 1 councillor as the chair.
I'm happy to move that.
Okay, so that's 3 extra points, and then those 2 extra points, and then the proxy. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Phil Truscott. Do we have that for the purpose of the minutes?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, including the new bit about the
Yep.
terms of reference. Any speakers or questions? Councillor Phil Truscott.
Well, through the Mayor, I just want to point out to the meeting that this is a really good thing about making council more efficient. On page 412.5 up the top, delegated authority of the Chief Executive Officer to approve the RADF Community Funding Program based on the RADF Advisory Committee. Well, that's why you have a committee to decide who's going to get the money, and that just goes straight to the Chief Executive Officer or someone he appoints to sign off on it, which is really quick, whereas it used to have to come back to council, which sometimes wouldn't get here for 2 months and people waiting for the money. So this is a really good move brought on by Joyce, suggested it, and I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, the closest thing is this thing with. Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
Point of clarification, just for people sitting here, RADF means Regional Arts Development Fund. We've been just saying RADF, and I'm just saying some people may not understand what that is. That's Regional Arts Development Fund program.
Right, any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.6, development application for material change of use, nature-based tourism and functional facility at 138 Gucci Road, Gucci, on pages 435 to 536. Were there any questions on this one? Councillor Truscott.
Yeah, through the Mayor, we have a policy on the council to promote RVs as much as possible. This one has caused a few problems with the locals, and therefore I'm happy to support it. I would like to point out, though, that one of the major problems that I think there's a lot of conditions on here which are acceptable, but at some point in time, I don't know how I word this, but that the road will be sealed because there's a lot of traffic that goes from the highway to the entrance of this park. Now it's about 1.1 kilometres. 1 kilometre, so that's about right. And the state government have already sealed 300 metres. So I would like to, for the future, to show my disapproval that that condition is not on here.
Yeah, perhaps Jared and Cameron can use the microphone.
Thank you, Councillor Truscott, and through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question, I suppose, or comment, and we'll just introduce Cameron, our senior planner, who's done some fantastic work on assessing this application over a significant period of time. I suppose my response or comment in terms of sealing the road would be that may be something that council wants to advocate for, maybe something that council wants to consider. It's not something that the assessment of the development application has deemed necessary in terms of the upgrade of the road. There's other traffic on the road, there's other uses of the road, there's through traffic. In terms of the specific application, noting that council will be aware from reading the report that there is what the applicant wanted, and then there's what we're approving, which are not the same thing. It's a scaled back approach. We've conditioned the road in terms of it already has an annual grade from council, and it's assessed. We have conditioned a road contribution charge to ensure that we can do increased maintenance based on the impact that this specific development causes. So we don't believe that the development is a trigger for sealing the road, and we believe we've appropriately conditioned the report to pick up the requirement for extra maintenance, and that will be a cost to the development, not the broader community. That doesn't, limit in any way council's advocacy for the, or desire, if it so has one, for the road to be sealed for other purposes.
Well, I do have one question which intrigued me on page 439 about point 13 about the manager's residence must have a telephone. Does that mean a landline, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so through you again, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Truscott. I might actually pass that over to Cameron, who's drafted the conditions, just to explain. I believe it's around emergency management. There are flood conditions on the site, but I'll pass that over to Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Truscott, through the Mayor. Yeah, the intention would be it could be either a landline or a mobile. It's just the point of contact for a site manager on site. So it could be either or. And if I may just add for the previous question also, the intention of that roadworks condition that it is in there, that it has been framed in an either or situation where we have, as Jared spoke on, requested that they could pay a contribution, or the alternative could be that they could actually undertake the sealing. It's at their discretion as whether they could do one or the other based on their own personal financial sort of situation for that. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Chapman.
Yes, Mr Mayor, councillors. I'd just like to ask the Director a question. Like, you're saying that they actually want a lot more conditions, a lot less conditions, and we've brought the conditions in, and we've got residents out there now that aren't happy about the park going ahead. Has there been any communications with the owners of the park and shown them the conditions, and what was their reply on the conditions that we've got here? Because I don't want to see down the track that we approve these conditions and then the owner actually goes over above these conditions and does what they want to do, and then council's resources have got to go out there and police it. So what was the concern of the, or has there been any communications with the owners and their concerns on these conditions? Are they willing to abide by them?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Truscott. So in terms of discussions, and I will, Councillor Chapman, I will hand over to Cameron again in a second to talk about his discussions, because he's been in weekly discussions for many months with the applicant, as well as some of the residents who are not necessarily happy with the proposal. I've spoken to both sides of that myself on occasions as well. In terms of complying with it, there's an expectation that should council approve this application, they'll have to comply with it. And we will be required to undertake compliance activities if they don't comply. But I'll just hand over to Cameron to talk about the discussions he's had in terms of draft conditions and with the applicants.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, thank you, Councillor Chapman. So as part of the assessment process, we prior to the tabling of the agenda item, it did go through a draft condition negotiation process with the applicants themselves, being Cullen and Cooper, but also the property owners managing the site. In response to that, there was a general acceptance of the conditions that had been imposed against the development. There were obviously some brief discussions in terms of specifically those conditions in regards to fencing and sort of setbacks from the creek bed. And that was just around, obviously, potential conflicts with their rural activity, the cattle grazing that's occurring on the land. And then also, obviously, just some discussions in relation to the payment of the contribution, how that figure was, derived, sorry. Once that sort of matter was sort of disclosed with them about how that figure was created, which was through negotiation with our operations staff, it was generally acceptable at the moment. Nonetheless, there could be a period of representations where we may need to look at it further. However, generally speaking, most conditions that have been imposed were reviewed by the applicant and generally accepted.
Yeah, thank you. It's just that the concerns was the location. It's right down the other end of the region, and thank you, and you're very thorough with the conditions. Thanks, Cameron.
I would say through you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Chapman, whether this gives council comfort or not, I think if they do breach the conditions, both officers and yourselves are likely to hear about that very quickly.
That was the other concern, Mr Mayor, was I don't want to see the council in the middle of two different parties, and that's what I just wanted to know. Has there been consultation out there and feeling? Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? I just wanted to ask a bit about these days when there'll be 120 campsites. That we've assessed the area and we believe it can cope with 120 campsites.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, and I'll let Cameron provide some comments on that. But yes, we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be recommending it. And you will be aware from some of the previous discussions. We've looked at the scale. We looked at the conditioning that happens in other nearby councils who have a significant larger proportion of these types of developments and the ways that they're managed. Plumbing is obviously a key thing, and they've now gone through and got their plumbing approvals and installed a whole range of infrastructure. So we are comfortable with it on the way we've limited it. But Cameron, do you want to make any further comments on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to note, I guess, that the property itself was combined total approximately about 220, I believe it was, hectares overall, and the actual camping areas that they're predominantly using of that land is approximately over about 20 to 25 hectares range, sort of along that creek bed arrangement. In terms of the camping sites specifically, they're actually limited to 50 sites day to day in their general operations, and it is allowing for that expansion to 120 only during the nominated periods, which is like your key long weekends and such through the year. So in terms of that, though, across that range of the area that's allowed on the site, they're generally well in excess of, there's actually a density of about 20 sites per hectare. So across that.
I guess that's why I'm asking about the 120, because clearly at some point we assess 50 as being the maximum for the site, but then there's like 6 or 7 long weekends where we more than double it.
Yep.
For some places for 4 whole days.
Essentially, it might be helpful if Cameron explains that the 50 is a defined area, 120 is a different area.
Yeah, that's right. So the 120 includes pretty much utilising the western half of the site in some part.
Yeah, I guess there's a reason why we won't say 120 every.
Oh, yep. So I guess the numbers in terms of that are generally around that the operation itself and trying to keeping it to an appropriate scale for its location in the rural area, I guess.
Yeah.
So in that regard, our nature-based tourism code under the planning scheme allows for generally a 50 maximum site. So the intention is that the day-to-day operations allow for that. But when also under the nature-based tourism code too, there is an acceptable outcome there that permits up to 100 sites as accepted development for a camping ground. So they're generally compliant with that, with the minor increase, which we believe that the minor increase due to the limited period through the year generally offsets any potential long-term impact that may have.
It's just that I guess my view is that it's 50 under the code, it's 50 when you're saying when you're looking at land, and then for 10 days over Christmas when we don't have any compliance officers working, you more than double it. I guess that's my concern. Yeah, and one say just obviously we're not saying 120 every single day of the year for a reason, but then the one time when we don't have people who can investigate noise complaints, the one time when we'll have difficulty getting anyone there, you're not going to put people on over Christmas, is when we more than double it.
Yes, I appreciate your comment, Mr. Mayor, and your concerns. Essentially, we've assessed that is the peak period of demand in terms of, we're trying to manage the amenity and a whole range of other impacts so that there's not a constant demand on people. But the reality is, whether it's councils, caravan parks at Burham Heads or on the Esplanade, they are the peak periods. Whether it's all of the other nature-based tourism campgrounds that exist all along the Mary River catchment, that is the peak period. So we're trying to get a balance between taking forward council's position that we want to promote nature-based tourism and have viable rural-based tourism businesses, but not having a large amenity impact, every day of the week throughout the year. So we have tried to create a balance there. Compliance, I acknowledge the point. The reality is council does have on-call compliance officers if we are required to. Ideally we would not be required to because they operate legally. There are requirements, and we've discussed this in terms of them recording the numbers, in terms of sharing with us the numbers of who's there. There's other conditions around some of the associated approvals, for instance, with the plumbing, where they have really large holding tanks, which allow up to 10 times the actual daily release, to be able to manage a whole range of impacts. So we believe we've got the balance right, but it is trying to balance competing needs of the amenity impacts, people's desire and right for quiet enjoyment of their own rural locality, with the council position that we want to promote rural-based tourism and other industries. So I can entirely accept that other people may think 60 is the right number, or 80 is the right number, or 100 is the right number. We've come to a conclusion that we're recommending.
And just with the 120, in terms of nature-based tourism code, it talks about up to 100 sites on page 456. How do you stretch that to 120 when the code talks about up to 50 where self-contained vehicles and up to 100 sites where involving a mixture of self-contained and non-self-contained camping ground RVs or cabins.
Yeah, so I think part of that's why we're coming to council to recommend an approval. But I'll having conducted the assessment, I'll hand it over to Cameron to explain how he came to that number.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the 120 sites was actually derived based on the capacity of their effluent tanks there on site. So the 120 was basically derived from an approximation of 2.5 people per campsite, essentially, so capping out a total of 300 people on the site. And that's basically in line with, as I said, the entire holding capacity of the designed effluent system, but also the designed state road thresholds under the planning regulation was a cap of 300 people, so they've purposefully designed 120 sites to be in line with both of those items.
Councillor Sanderson.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, to my colleague, Councillor Truscott, resident feedback, what's it been like? Or have you received any? Of course you would have received some, but what's the feedback from the residents?
The residents that live close, like across the road, simply don't want it. I've had many communications with two of those residents, and they simply don't want it unless it was really, really small, like about 9 caravans, like it was.
Councillor Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, I'd actually like to speak for this motion. One of the things that I look at is this is keeping people longer in our region. And I've actually been over to Gameri, and they've got a Gameri camp just out of town at Gameri. And Gameri is a little town that you drive through. It's got a bakery and shops and like the antique shop and the country and western clothing store. It's a beautiful little town, but what's actually happening with Gameri is this park is generating wealth into the Gameri community. I think keeping caravans within our region, letting people pull up longer and staying in our region and showing what our region's like here, you're going to see places like Gundyre, the hotel over in Gundyre, Theebine. I know it's not in our region, but it's still, and you've got the Glenwood service station. You even got Bopple, the Bopple Museum. I'd like to see when this opens up if the figures are kept at the Bopple Museum to see if there's any number increases. Because when you're camping in these sites, you don't want to be sitting in your caravan all day just looking at yourself or sitting under an awning. You want to think the next day, what am I going to do? Where can we go? Oh, there's a beautiful little museum over in Bopple. Let's go over and have a look at that and have a look around. You never know that some of these people, I've heard of people that are actually pulled up and stayed for a while in a place and gone up north, around Australia. What have they done? They've come back and bought into their region. And I'm sure the residents across the road wouldn't like it because they hadn't had anyone around them for a long time. And I can see the sentiment that they've got. But the world is changing and there's so many caravans on the road. With this cold snap, I reckon there'll be caravans turning around Brisbane and coming back because they don't want to head into the cold. They all want to come up here and enjoy our warmth and our climate. And I feel that this is a great project. And sure, as it goes along, we can actually alter things. There's no problem with altering to make it work even better. But I will be voting for this, and I think this is great for our region, and I'd like to see a lot more of them, and let's show off what we've got here. Thank you.
So, are you moving the motion, the recommendation?
Yes,
yeah.
I'd love to.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Everard seconding. Any further speakers or questions? No further speakers or questions? Okay. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.7, the Wetside Water Park Tender Evaluation Report, pages 537 to 569. You're moving this? This is moved by Councillor Everard. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Chapman seconding. And so if we need to go into a closed session to discuss the confidential attachments, just let me know and we'll move so. Did you have any speakers? Anything? Can I just ask perhaps the director, is it the intention that this will have softball?
It's a yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and the easy answer is to say yes, but I need to be a little bit more elaborate because we've obviously, I think the question may stem from some of the challenges we're having at Splash Side at the moment. Softfall is a particular type of proprietary product which doesn't work well in aquatic environments. Some councillors be aware. In a previous council that I worked with, we're at a water park. I replaced the softfall 4 times under warranty, and then was replacing it at a cost of over $1 million every couple of years. So there's a range of products which have different levels of appropriateness for an aquatic environment and different levels of I suppose softness. So the answer is yes, through the design, we'll be seeking an appropriately soft and safe product, which may not exactly be, what people think of as softfall in terms of what you'd see under a kid's swing or something like that.
Like elsewhere in the wet sides.
Yeah, so some of those kinds of rubberised products. There's some softened plastic products. There's a range of different products that work well in aquatic environments. Given this is a D&C contract, it's hard for me at this stage to give detailed specifications because we don't have them. But it'll be a key consideration as we go through the design process to make sure that it's fit for purpose.
Any further questions for speakers? Okay. I'll put the motion. Move Councillor Everard, second Councillor Chapman. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.4, request to address speed and traffic movements in surrounding streets of Boat Harbour Drive and Elizabeth Street. This is page 570 to 575. Councillor Zane O'Keefe's an apology, but he's asked me to move an amended motion, which includes points 1, 2 and 3, and a fourth point, request for a further traffic count to be undertaken in Vanda Street, Urangan, in 12 months' time to assess the impact of the works undertaken. Seconded Councillor Everard. Any questions or speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.4.2, pages 576 to 582, on the proposed intersection upgrades. Councillor Truscott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move this one with a slight amendment at the end, which is, so points 1 and 2 are the same, and point 3 is Wilson Street, Premiere Street and Tooley Street for a 90-degree configuration of the intersections with Wilson Street. And this is the inclusion, and continue to monitor this intersection for potential speed calming methods if required in the future.
Yep. Seconded Councillor Chapman. Yep. Any speakers or questions? Councillor Truscott.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to briefly say, I'm glad we're doing something here. I'm very pleased with that, and I know from talking to the residents there that they are also very pleased we are doing something there. And with the greatest respect to our staff, I think this is a solution. I think it will be, I would love it to be a long-term solution, but I see it personally as probably being a short-term solution for a bigger problem, because there is just a lot of hooning in that area, and from talking to the residents, from seeing on the street there myself, the black tyre strips on the road where people have literally just been flying through there so fast that they are actually going onto the footpaths and stuff. And I'm thinking, if there's a kid walking there, that would be disastrous. Anyone walking there, that would be horrible. So that's why I've added that bit in at the end, because I'm hopeful that this will solve the problem. I don't know if it will,
My personal thought would have been I would love to have seen that peanut roundabout, would have been the first of its kind, but it would have stopped the problem of the hooning in that area, because it's a long straight strip. So that's why I'm adding this bit, because at least we can look at that if this doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I hope it does.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak for this motion. And, it's, you've looked at the 3 issues that have been brought up here.
You just press it. Oh, you got to really hold it down.
Can we have it? I just think that these intersections, we've got a lot more intersections around the region that need to be looked at, but these 3 intersections, and especially the one near the golf course at Harvey Boat,
2th Street,
on 2th Street, that's a real concern there. And what we're doing in this one at Wilson Street is exactly what happened on the end of Palace Street, with people coming in. And we've got a lot of these streets within Maryborough where they come on not at 90 degrees. And this was something that was brought. We have spoken about this at the TAC meeting, and this is a great outcome, I feel. I will be voting for these.
Yeah. I also support this motion. These are 3 intersections that are very, very different intersections, but each with their own difficulties. The Maryborough one, because of the way 5 roads come together, and one of them at a very difficult angle. The Torquay one by the Girl Guides Hut, because it's dangerous, and it's right near a school. And then the 2th Street one, because you can be waiting there for 20 minutes if you want to turn right sometimes. And also the amount of school students that cross that at a very difficult angle. So these 3 intersections, all within our control. All, I want to commend the designers on looking for solutions on how we can address the issues, the very different issues. Are there any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.5.1, Wide Bay Burnett Urban Water Alliance, pages 583 to 620. So I move that we receive and note it. Councillor Everard. Seconded, Councillor Chapman. Any speakers or questions? Any questions for Mark? Yeah. No. Okay. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 12.1, request to name Park Reserve at the corner of Pyalba Burham Heads Road and Peterson's Road, Craignish. This is moved Councillor Paul Truscott. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Phil Truscott. Did you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, if I may, Mr Mayor. Councillor Wellings asked if I could please read this on her behalf. She's unable to be here today. She said this park used to be very underutilised and lonely, and is the most embellished park, not just in Craignish, but probably in Division 5. This is the park that has the BMX track, a playground, a basketball hoop, a barbecue, toilet block, and the recently installed big and small dog park. There are now just a couple of items left on the master plan to complete this park. Many of the community are confused about wayfinding because some people believe it's called Peterson Park, but in actual fact Peterson Park is down the road on Oceans Park Drive. So if you punch that into your GPS, you'll go to the wrong park. Our own council staff get confused at times, and they say, informally referring to it now as Peterson Road Park. So she doesn't have an opinion on what to call the park, just an opinion that it should have a name for wayfinding.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just ask the CEO? We have a pretty standard process. We don't need to identify the process we'll go through. It'll just go through standard naming.
That's right, Mr Mayor. Sorry.
So would we normally come up with a couple of ideas before we go out and consult on those, or do we just go out with a blank space?
So my understanding, and I'll defer to the Director to add to this if required, but unless the Council nominates some suggestions, we'll go out to the community and without any suggestions and have the suggestions come from the community for the Council to consider.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Just move Councillor Paul Truscott, seconded Councillor Phil Truscott. Any further speakers or questions? What happened to him?
He must have gone to the loo.
Okay, we'll change it. Yeah, 6 is the quorum. We'll have to make Councillor Everard Seconder then. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 12.2, requests for report on opportunities to allow and encourage the use of public spaces. This is page 723 of the supplementary agenda, number 3. Move Councillor Sanderson. Is there a seconder for this? Paul Truscott?
Yep.
Councillor Sanderson, did you wish to speak to this?
Briefly, Mr Mayor, if that's okay.
Yep.
Yep. So, Mr Chair, the reason for this motion, as we know, we recently had a workshop in our city with Greg Van and Stephen Yarwood, which, as we know, are two leading urban planners, the former Lord Mayor of Adelaide, and urban futurist, as we know, Stephen Yarwood, which is a grandfather of planning in Queensland. So they came, as we know, had a look at our CBD, and this motion around it, I don't want to go into all of that, but the intent is to, I know, and my colleagues know how passionate I am about our great city and region, and this ties into how we formulate that vision, which is something they definitely encourage us to do. They affirm that we're on the right track. And as said, I think the next couple of years we are entering a very, very exciting future for our great city, and this only helps activate these steps moving forward. So whether that is, and the intent of the motion, if it's fashion shows and laneways, or it can be anything of the like, if it's food trucks having festivals or fiestas, whatever you want to call it, in empty car park spaces that we're not using, that council own, I think we can send that message, and I've spoken to my colleagues about this, whether it needs a report. I know I'm asking for that, but it's making formal to our regional community and beyond that we want to activate these spaces. Talking to our director, Carline, I mean, some of the food trucks in Adelaide became restaurants in the CBD because of the council allowing those food trucks to actually have a place to eat at, where people flock to. And I think, as I said, we do that with our events, but this is saying that we really want to make it a focus of council. So, Mr Mayor, I'm just asking that my colleagues support this. And I know we're in the process of formulating the CBD vision as we're due for that, but I think it's a step as part of that, so it won't be an obstacle out of that formulation of a vision. So I think we're not double stepping or taking two steps here. I think it will tie into what we're doing there with the vision, but at the same time it makes it clear to our region and its people that we want that to happen. And I think through that message people will start to allow that culture to create itself. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Everard.
Microphones.
Yeah, so I guess this will be to the Director Carline, via you, Mr Mayor. Can we do this now already, Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So I think the answer is yes. And there have been some people who have done it. There's been, obviously the Maryborough City Association done the work in the past in terms of the street parties and things like that. We have some innovative ones. We've allowed a trial down at Glenwood of a pizza truck down there on some land. So there's some organic things already happening in different locations. We have the rules around where they can be located and food trucks and the like. So in terms of bringing back the report, I'd be assuming it's passed. I'd be seeking to, I suppose, explain what the current rules are. Look at opportunities for urban placemaking and things like that. Should council pass the motion.
So, Mr Mayor, if I could just add to that. So the motion not only talks about reporting on what the opportunities and acknowledging that we can most do these things now, but it also talks to ask the report to consider how we encourage. That's another element that the council needs to consider. So the fact that we can do it now is fine, but how do we encourage it will require a council decision.
So, but will this be region-wide, everywhere?
Yeah, it doesn't tie it to one area. Yeah.
I was just making sure.
Yeah. Councillor Chapman.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll be voting for this because there is things in here that, like the Apex Santa Fair, they used to block off the Maddow car park and use the car park and things like that. But as Councillor Sanderson said about temporary food vans, and I know we're going to have conflict with other businesses. It depends what's going to happen, but this is a long process. But what happens is, if we get a report back, at least it shows people what they can do and what they can't do in a report. And I will be voting for this, and I'd like to thank Councillor Sanderson for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 12.3, requests for a report on damage caused by pavers two pavers by tree roots at the Maryborough City Hall Green. Moved Councillor Phil Truscott, seconded by Councillor Paul Truscott. Do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, please. That'd be good. This is just a thing I noticed. Obviously, just today they're finishing off doing the pavers again, fixing up from the tree roots. That's an expensive process for the council. It would be more expensive to put a boardwalk up, I understand, but then we don't need to do the pavers again. So I believe having a boardwalk there would add aesthetic value, would be lovely place for people to sit on chairs and tables, etc., as well as walk through, and eventually would save the council money.
Any further speakers? Councillor Paul Truscott.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just briefly, I think it's a good idea for the long term as well, like to, instead of keep repairing the tiles and cutting back the tree roots underneath, I think the Town Hall Green is such a beautiful spot that something like this could really just embellish and improve an area that I didn't think we could ever do. So I think there's good potential for it. It could look something really pretty and make that area just even better.
Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, I've actually got concerns about putting a timber boardwalk down, and the reason there is the maintenance is not only the maintenance at the start, but it's the long-term maintenance and the cost of timber and everything like that. But I know it's just a report coming back, and it'd be good to see some costings in there and see how correct I really am.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 13.1, Freedom Park Cenotaph, at pages 622. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Everard. Is there a seconder? Councillor Chapman. Did you wish to speak to this? No. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.1, Organisational Performance Report, pages 633 to 649. Are there any questions on this? Yeah, supplementary 1 on pages 633. Yeah, Councillor Everard's moving that. Is there a seconder? I'll second it. Let's see how many people vote against it now. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.2, the Chief Executive Officer Performance Review Committee, on pages 650 to 656. Given that we have such a small number of councillors here today, I think it wouldn't be inappropriate to defer this a month. It's not suddenly become urgent. So unless does anyone have any thoughts on that? Simply lying on the table, would you?
Procedural motion to lie on the table.
Yeah. So it doesn't need a seconder, does it?
Not for a procedural motion.
Were there any? Yeah. Yeah. I'll move that this lie on the table. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me time to lobby.
Well, there's this magic month where like item 16.1.3, the tender award for Dundarren Road, pages 657 to 669. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Chapman, you're moving. Councillor Everard, you're seconding. Are there any speakers or questions? No. Put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.4, the tender award for the water network disinfection stations, design and construction, pages 670 to 684. Moved Councillor Everard. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Phil Truscott. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.6, the tender award for the Boundary Road extension, pages 690 to 714. Councillor Chapman is moving this. Is there a seconder? Yeah. Is there a seconder for this one? Oh, Councillor Hanson seconding this? Yeah. Did you wish to speak to this, Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, this is a game changer, I feel, for our region. This is a much needed road, and this is coming with under our budget that we estimated it was going to cost. I know there's some other things like tree planting and different things, but when you look at the flyover on this project, is a beautiful road, 4-lane road with trees, footpaths, access, and this should be the standard that we should be trying to build to grow our region. One thing about this road is it was unrecognised as a link that was missing within our network, our regional network through Harvey Bay. And what this does is this actually opens up a east-west corridor. So you can go from the airport out to Dundarren through Drew's Lane, one way, just straight through. But what it's going to do is it's going to actually take traffic off Boat Harbour Drive and around Eli Waters and those areas of people that are travelling from Maryborough and want to go to, say, Torquay. They'll go down to Arroween Road, go along and go into Torquay that way. So this is much needed, and I'd say the project will start in the early part of it has already started, some parts of it, of shifting the technology under the ground, the services they call it. But I really feel that when this road's finished, we'll have other big projects to look at, but this will be a game changer for the region for moving traffic around Harvey Bay. And I'd just like to thank the director and all the engineers and everyone that's been involved in this project. And it was something that this is a project that's been going on now for, I think it's well over 30 years that the corridor was actually taken out to say where the houses were being developed. This is a corridor that's needed for this road. But this project, when recognised to put into the budget and to get the design, has taken nearly 5 years. And that's with community consultation, with talking to people about access, bicycle accesses and everything like that. And I feel that I feel that a lot of the bases have been covered on this, and this is a great project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I too want to thank the staff who have done such a remarkable job on this, but I also want to particularly note and commend Councillor Chapman on his leadership. This is a project that has been around on the books. The road's been reserved since probably the time Judy Rice or Fred Kleinschmidt was mayor, and it's really needed somebody like Councillor Chapman to recognise the importance of it and to push through with it. And now it's in the Hinkler deal, and we're about to award the tender for it, which come in under budget. So I really want to commend Councillor Chapman for seeing this project through, for recognising the need, for recognising the opportunity and helping us to get funding through the Hinkler deal, and seeing it to fruition, because it is a major piece of infrastructure for Harvey Bay that's very, very much needed.
Thank you.
Councillor
I've got a question for the Director, just a bit. If possible, Director, when will we start notifying the residents in that area? Look, I've had a few calls from residents who don't want it, sadly, about the construction timeframes, and look, they're already starting about the dust mitigation and all that sort of stuff. So we'll start a pretty active engagement with the locals.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Through the Mayor, we have been keeping the residents informed throughout the design phase, and we have sent a letter to the residents last month advising that the tenders are under evaluation and that a report will be going to Council this month. And so they are aware of that. So as soon as Council's endorsement today, we will go back and inform the residents of the contractor has been appointed, and we're expecting a commencement in February next year. The reason for February is there's few challenges in the supply chain, delays with some of the material. So taking that into consideration, so we are looking at a February start, but we will go back to the community and advise the start. We're looking at a duration of 18 months to complete the work, so that will take to mid-2023 for completion. So we got a good communication strategy developed for this project, and we'll follow the process through that to inform the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Truscott.
I just have a question. I've got a actually private text which I've asked him to email me, which I haven't got yet. And this is what it says for one of the directors. I'm not sure if this is pool director or infrastructure. I've heard some disturbing news today that if the upgrades to the aquatic centre are not going ahead until Boundary Road is finished, why is the council budget has allowed us this stage one to start in this year's budget? And so why is it not going ahead until 2023 once Boundary Road's done? I don't know anything about that. Does anyone know?
Well, we defer.
They're talking about the aquatic centre upgrade or whatever.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's no connection that I'm aware of between the two projects. If they're concerned about us not pushing ahead with the aquatics centre master plan, that's because council didn't support us keeping that money in the budget. So the money was taken out of the budget, but there's no connection with the Boundary Road project.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to openly and publicly say and concur with your words, Mr Mayor, about projects like this don't just happen unless someone formally pushes it. That's right. And it takes positive leadership, but also passionate leadership and strong leadership. And I just wanted to publicly, in front of my colleagues as well, Councillor Chapman, congratulate you. This is a 20 million, probably would have been more, project that is now front and centre and is now happening. I was here and we've been here years ago when we have seen it get to where it is today, and anything like this just doesn't happen. So I just wanted to say well done, congratulations, and on behalf of all of us, I'm sure I speak on behalf of my colleagues, that this will be a legacy, mate, and you should feel proud for this achievement. So well done.
Any further speakers or questions?
I had a question for the Director. Just the Director of Infrastructure. Would this project been a lot cheaper if it was built in when the development was built? And the other question was, would it incur less effect on the residents in the region for dust and everything like that if it was built there when it was all vacant land and the foresight would have been seen then?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Through the Mayor, most certainly it would have been much cheaper and less disruptive to do or undertake the works when the development was completed. Obviously that didn't happen, so we paying the price, I guess, in terms of the disruption to the community and the cost. So the longer we wait on any project, the cost escalates. So I think it's really timely. If we leave this project any longer, it's just gonna be more difficult to deliver. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just add to that and qualify the Director's statements. It may not have been cheaper to do it then, because I need to recognise the contribution from the federal government and from the state government. And if the council had been required to fund that infrastructure back in the 90s out of its own pocket, there would have been a significant cost, ongoing depreciation, ongoing maintenance associated with that. So whilst the actual construction cost may have been cheaper, the cost to the community may have been significantly higher for the actual costs be significantly higher to construct it, if the community had to bear the whole cost, and to operate and maintain it for all these years.
And perhaps the state government wouldn't have made the upgrades to Boat Harbour Drive in about 2007 when they doubled small areas.
That's
perhaps,
right.
Yeah, there's little small sections of 2 lanes here. Yeah, Councillor Truscott.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to echo some of the comments as well about, thanking Councillor Chapman for being a big driving force on this. I think it's a great project, and it will be great once it's done in terms of easing up traffic around Harvey Bay. It's also good to note that it's a local contractor,
as well that's getting the work, which is jobs in the region, and it is a phenomenal sum really as well of money. And we're just looking back through some information, and just as a point of interest, it's over the last few years, over the contracts that have been awarded, this is about 20% of the total value of all of the contracts that we've dealt with over the last few years. It's 20% in one project, so it's a huge financial commitment, and that's just in the one project. So it's good to see that sort of commitment and confidence to see something like this happen, and I'm pleased that it's going to make it a much safer route for people travelling through the bay as well.
Thank you. Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to praise Councillor Chapman for his leadership on this role. We know Councillor Chapman, he's like a dog with a bone once he gets into a project, and it's happened many, many times. The hospice is another good example. But this does take a lot of leadership and a lot of dedication. I want to thank you for that as well.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 15. And I'll have to apologise to the members of the public here. There's some items that we have to go into confidential, into Carly. Come all the way out to North Rammer and kicking you out of your hall. So I'll move that council move into closed session pursuant to section... I think they're all sticking around though. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, I think it'll be pretty quick. Yeah. I'll move that we go into closed session pursuant to section 254J3 of the local government regulation for discussion of the following items. 1, in accordance with section 254J3G, purchase of land at Nickenbaugh as it relates to negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government, for which a public discussion would likely to prejudice the interests of the local government. 2, in accordance with section 254J3E, it is necessary to close the meeting to discuss ordinary items 16.2.1, QCAT proceedings, terms of settlement agreement as it relates to legal advice obtained by the local government or legal proceedings involving local governments. 3, in accordance with section 254J3G, it is necessary to close the meeting to discuss item 16. Right.
I didn't bring a gap.
No. Okay, whilst in confidential, under section 254J, 3E and G of the Act, we discussed item 15.1, item 16.2.1, and item 16.2.2. We'll go to item 15.1, purchase of land at Nickenbaugh. This is moved Councillor Chapman, seconded Councillor Everard. Are there any questions or discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.2.1, QCAT proceedings, terms of settlement agreement. This is moved Councillor Phil Truscott, second Councillor Hanson. Any questions or discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.2.2, financial assistance, Gelch Enterprises Propriety Limited. This is moved Councillor Everard, second Councillor Paul Truscott. Any questions or discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. We'll go to general business. Is there any general business? Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the community of North Rammer for coming out in force today. There's a lot of good local support here, which is always good to see. And in terms of actual population, I think that percentage-wise, you've probably outdone a lot of the other areas that we go to be honest. And I want to thank you for what smells good that's coming up down there. So it's always good to get out here. And I can't believe that I was at the 75th anniversary of the hall here back in 2004 as a Wuku councillor, and I can't believe it's coming up to 100 years now. So that's amazing, really. Time flies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll have to. We used to have cricket games where the councillors played community groups. They'll have to come out and play in this oval. I do want to thank the community of North Aramara for allowing us to come out and hold our meeting here and being such good hosts. I also want to thank our staff who have done a great job in setting up. I don't know if this is the first time that there's been a council meeting here, or but it certainly is not easy, especially when you got to record it. But I want to thank the staff who've been here since 7:20, 7:30 to set up and get the meeting ready. It's important that we hold these meetings out in different halls across the community, and it's one that I've been looking forward to. Councillor Chapman?
Mr Mayor, could I bring an item up about the men's shed in Howard, please?
Yeah. Councillor Chapman's moving that we bring that up in general business. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hanson?
Yeah.
All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously.
Mr Mayor, I visited the men's shed yesterday out at Howard, and through the council's discretionary funding and the funding, the grant funding, through the funding grants and everything that the council's assisted the men's shed, they've moved on with technology and they've actually got a laser cutter now. And it was great to see that the group of gentlemen out there, they're way in front of other men's sheds with technology now, and to see them just learning this is absolutely great. That's a little plaque that they made up yesterday just out of the blue, and they're going to move forward. And I'd just like to thank the council for all these community groups that we actually support with funding, because that's it's just so hard to get money these days for selling raffle tickets at pubs and different things like that is a way gone. So I just thank you and thank the councillors for helping these groups out there. Thank you.
Any further general business? If not, I'll close the meeting at 12:01. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
We nearly had 12.